So, good evening, everyone. Welcome to our special project webinar tonight for Citygate House in Leicester. Do appreciate everyone taking the time to join us. Appreciate time is precious. Even though people are in lockdown, I know they've still got commitments with families and business. And I'm sure after a day behind a computer or in a kitchen table or a dining room table, sometimes when you get to the evening, sitting behind a desk again or getting back on Zoom, perhaps isn't the first thing on the agenda, but we certainly appreciate everyone taking the time to be here tonight. And we're going to hear from our special guest tonight, Vijay and Thomas, just in a moment. So just to kick things off, I said tonight is very much geared to what we call a project webinar. It's about sharing information about a specific project that is currently on our platform, and we'll be dealing with that tonight. Now, I always like to start with this because it is important. We do operate in a regulated and a compliant environment. And if you read along the bottom there, crowdfunding or LEOcrowdfunding is an appointed representative of Sharon Limited, which is authorized and regulated by the FCA. And you can read on there to see that pitches for investments are not offered to the general public. And literally we provide information for investors then to make an informed decision if they want to invest or not. So during the presentation, you'll see from time to time risk warnings. So it's just to ensure that everyone on the call tonight understands we do operate in a regulated and a compliant environment. Now, the headlines on this project, absolutely delighted tonight to be able to go through this project. It's been about probably 8.5 months, I think, in the preparation stage of discussions and of watched it develop. I'm really, on a personal level, delighted that we're able to bring this to the platform and offer it to our crowd of investors. So the project name, Citygate House in Leicester, it's a build to rent project, commercial to resi. You can see there the equity raise that the fundraiser is wanting to raise is 600,000. The minimum raise is 400,000. So providing we reach that, then it's a successful raise and that funds can go to the project. Now the return, projected return, 20% per annum, and we're reckoning this as an 18-month project, sort of at the worst case scenario, and Vijay will discuss that later on. Now the minimum investment for this project is £1,000. That's the minimum entry level to be in the project. So absolutely delighted, as I say, to welcome Vijay and Thomas here tonight. So I think the first thing, guys, is to let you have a minute each just to introduce yourselves, explain your background, what you've done in property, and then we'll move into the details on the project. So Vijay, do you want to go first?
Yeah. Hi everyone. Basically, I started in the property market at age of 23 with a family business. We had a chemist shop, so which my father built it up to about 44 chemist shops throughout UK. And he successfully sold them, and we went into care home business. We had 3 care homes, and we sold those, and subsequently he retired, and I started in the property market. So we've been doing refurbishments, and we've started with doing large schemes, 7 units to 15 units. We did a scheme in Tunbridge Wells for about 17 flats, and that's when I met Thomas, and basically we joined together with another partner. And we've successfully built up a platform of student accommodation projects and PRS schemes. Over to you, Thomas.
Yep.
Yes, I used to work as a finance director for corporate companies for 20 years, reporting to worldwide CFOs in New York usually. So after 20 years of that, I realized finance is hard work. So I moved into property from 2009 onwards. And as I say, met Vijay in about 2010, 2011, we did our first student projects. And since then, we've actually done about £250 million worth of property projects, of which we've sold about 150 million in the last 2 years. So a lot of projects we've done, well over 20 projects. And so at the moment, we are now in a position where we've got a lot of them rented out now, student accommodation and PRS, and have sold a few. And the rented ones are also about to go on the market. So we're in the process of selling the properties that we've built up over time.
Excellent, guys. Thank you very much. I'm sure the attendees can immediately see why I was pleased to get this project onto our platform. Both of you have got a lot of experience in the property world. Clearly a very, very strong track record. I know, Thomas, from your background in terms of finance, and I know you've also done a little bit in crowdfunding in the past, so you're aware of the concept. And Vijay, in terms of 27 projects and 5 projects in Leicester, similar to the ones that we're talking about tonight, I think demonstrates an incredible track record, which is something that investors obviously want to see, want to be able to identify people who can deliver and have a track record of delivery. So just one brief dip into this build to rent, Vijay, because this is quite a specialist part of the private rented sector. What was it took you into this sector? Why did you choose sort of to go down this route as your strategy?
Basically, we've got a site in Sheffield, which is about 2.5 acres. When we acquired the site had a planning consent for 840 beds student scheme, which was quite large at the time, 4 years ago. So we then decided to split the planning into 2 stages. One was to do a student accommodation and then the other part to do a residential scheme. But when we applied for the residential scheme for 247 flats, immediately we got a lot of interest from institution funders. So we did a deal with Grangers PLC on a forward funding basis, and we sold that deal to them successfully. We completed the project for them last September, and they've sort of occupied most of the flats within 3 to 4 months, and they managed to achieve 18% rental, well, more rental than what they were predicting on the site. Hence, then I've got a site which we did a similar PRS scheme with in Nottingham, where we acquired the site, got the planning, sold it to a part of Rothschilds, which is Coding UK arm, and they've entered with us on a forward funding basis. And we've also got another scheme in Leicester, which we're currently waiting for planning on that, for 140 flats, and Coding have entered with us on a forward funding deal on that as well. So hence, we've got a lot of traction on the PRS scheme.
Yeah. Okay. So you kind of went into it and then saw how successful it was and just continued on with that.
Correct,
yeah. Excellent. Okay. So just to highlight one thing, which I think is quite interesting, that the predictions are that the 33% of everyone that retires in the UK will want to rent. So I found that an interesting figure in terms of the demand for this type of property on into the future. Obviously, we've got challenges around COVID and the uncertainty of the economy, but people still want to live in houses. The rental market in the UK is buoyant and strong, and as more and more people get to retirement age, if a percentage of those are wanting to rent, then there is a demand for this type of property. If anyone does want to deep dive more into the whole build to rent and the private rented sector, then you can have listed there the House of Commons paper on it, and it certainly deep dives into the statistics and behind the current market in that sector, which is quite interesting. So you mentioned the fact that you've recently done some projects, completed them, and then sold them, to institutions and funds. So I know this is one that I saw some press coverage in Leicester that you sent me, because I think you made the local press when this deal went through. So these are 2 projects that you did and sold them together to 90 North for 22 million. Can you briefly just explain the two sort of projects, and then we'll deep dive into this current one?
Yeah, Thomas.
Yeah, so Dover Street, I mean, that was a car park. So we bought that as a car park 2-3 years ago for £250,000 at the time, and then spent a bit of time getting the planning across the line. So that's what we do. We buy a site without planning, get the planning, build it out, and then rent it out and then sell it to institutional investors. That's the model. So Dover Street was very good. It was a car park, and then you've got the planning for that, and then took, you know, a year and a half to build it out, and then rented it out for 1 year, and then we started to put it on the market. Of course, when we went to market, it was just before Brexit, so it all took a bit longer than expected. And then we've got the Goods Corner one as well, which Vijay found that one very, very good deal as well. So that was a site which we bought. And actually, Vijay, you can probably fill us in a bit more on what happened.
Yeah, sure. This was quite a difficult site in the sense that it was on a market for about 15 to 18 years. And the reason why none of the developers were picking it up was right at the middle of the site, there was a listed cottage, which was making it difficult for any developers to progress with the site. So we came up with a solution with the planners by deciding to take the listed, get a consent for listed cottage, demolition consent for listed cottage, which we did. We then disabled the whole of cottage stone by stone, numbered it and stored it away and brought it back and rebuilt it on the existing site. And currently we're using that cottage as a common room for all the students. And hence it was quite a difficult project, but we managed to finish on time, let it out, and we're achieving well over 15-20% more rentals than we thought we were going to get, and we got 51 weeks book ASTs from the students as well, and all the students are Chinese students, which we get rentals in advance. So come August, September, all the rentals are paid in advance to us.
Excellent. Okay, yeah, excellent. So that really, I think lets the attendees sort of see projects that you've done literally in the last couple of years, successfully completed the projects, have sold, to institutions and funds, which is very much the model for what we're going to talk about now. So this location, again, I thought was an excellent location. St. Margaret Street, there's a bus station, 5 minutes walk, train station, 15 minutes walk, the main station in Leicester, of course, one of the big cities in the UK. I also quite like the fact that the Abbey Park was just literally 3 minutes walk, which is a bottom right-hand side there. Is a beautiful, I suppose, with the COVID situation, it's a nice place to go and have a walk and clear the head. But you've shops and local amenities. So in terms of the location, what's your main sort of key points and the selling points, if you like, as this as a location?
The location is literally a walking distance from the main shopping centre in Leicester city centre, and also the bus stop right opposite the site. And the reason why we looked at this project was Secretary of State are currently coming to the end of their life, and they're vacating most of their properties all over the UK. This was a good building itself. It's quite a nice and neat building, and we saw an opportunity under the PD to create 56 units. And then we saw an opportunity with the car park is. So in last 8 to 9 months, we have been comprehensively working with Leicester City Council with the pre-app, and in the pre-app, we got the pre-app back about 4 months ago, a positive pre-app for 38 flats onto the car park. So we've been working up the scheme for the last 8 to 9 months.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so just as you were saying there, the PD approval is there, it's ready to go, and this is really part of 3 phases. And I think it's worth explaining to the attendees that this is actually a big site that you've acquired, and that there's actually going to be 3 phases. So this raise is only about the first phase. So I want to just make that really clear. So the bit in the red box is the building you can see in the picture. So that's the building, and that will be renovated and refurbed into the 56 apartments. But then you've got a car park at the back. So you want to just explain, guys, if you like, phase 2 and phase 3.
So phase 1 is that we've got a consent under PD for the 56 units. And the phase 2 is going to be the car park, where we've successfully got a pre-app consent from the Leicester City Council for 38 units. It's a mixture of studios, 1 beds and 2 beds. And then the third phase is on top of the existing building under the new PD scheme, which came out back in September, where we can put 2 more floors on there. And we've got that application ready to go in. So what we're trying to do is to get the second phase in and approved, and then we'll put the third phase with the planners and get that approved. That will give us just about 112 units in total.
Excellent. Okay. And they are independent phases. So I suppose for the investors on the line, and I should have said at the start, and just remind people, if you have any questions, we don't use the chat box on these webinars. We use the Q&A facility. So if you do have any specific questions for Vijay or Thomas, or indeed myself regarding the crowdfunding side, please feel free to put your questions into the Q&A. It also means they're recorded. So if we don't get time tonight to answer questions in enough detail, then we can follow up with the questions that are saved in the Q&A, and we can then send those answers, sort of more detailed answers, to all the attendees, because obviously we'll have your email address. So just so people are aware of that facility, please use the Q&A. We tend to try and keep the Q&A to the end. So if you have submitted a question and I see some coming in there, don't panic if we don't deal with it straight away. We'll deal with it when the time's right. So just one thing to highlight, guys, a lot of investors, one of the first questions they're going to ask is, what's the exit strategy? So I know primarily, obviously, a sale is what you like to do, but I know you obviously have thought about what happens if we can't sell. So do you want to just quickly explain the different exit routes that you've got in place for this?
Yeah, so we've got, first of all, we've on the valuation on the numbers, we've used the lower end of the resale values should we have to sell them individually. So that's one option we've got if we need to. And the second option is we just refinance it and rent it out. So we've done the numbers on that. So if we were to refinance, we can do that quite comfortably and then rent them out and hold. And the third option is to sell to an equity fund or an end buyer who's a fund, and they normally come along and buy the whole building based on rental income on a, let's say, a 5% net yield. So once it's rented out, or we can improve the rental, then we can speak to the fund and say, look, here's the income producing asset. Would you like to buy it at 5% net yield? So those are the 3 different exit strategies. And of course, the safest one is first to rent it out if we need to, which gives us time to sell and so on.
Perfect. Yeah, okay. No, thank you for that. It's something that one of the main questions we get asked, about projects is exactly that on the exit. What happens if the first strategy doesn't come? But obviously, you guys are quite used to dealing with these scenarios and needing to have different exits in place. So there was a question there just to clarify the numbers. So there's 56 apartments in phase 1, mixture obviously of beds and studios. Phase 2, how many units, and phase 3, how many units?
38 flats, and then third phase is 26 flats.
Okay, so 56, 38, and 26. So I think you said a total number altogether, 100 and something across the 3 phases.
The one, what we need to do is we need to provide some amenity spaces onto the roof space. So when we do the third phase, I've said 26 units, but it all depends on what we agree with the Leicester City Council for the amenity space. Rather than creating within the existing building, we want to try and put it on the roof space. And that might just change the numbers a little bit at the back end. So
okay.
I think the bottom line number would be about 110, but we might get another 5-6 more units on top.
Okay, excellent. I think that answers the question. So in terms of I suppose, all these projects, it's not just yourself, Vijay, and Thomas doing everything. So you obviously are the lead people, but it takes a good team to be able to deliver these size of projects. And I know, Vijay, you've actually got a number of projects ongoing at this moment in time as well. So in terms of your key sort of partners, team members on this, you want to just quickly explain sort of them, and if you worked with them in the past, and just what their key strengths are? Yeah,
Danielle from Hybrid Planning Consultant. I've been working with her for the last 8-9 years. She started right from the beginning with the first project we had, and she's been every project or every site we acquire, we do due diligence with Hybrid. They basically gather all the information and the planning application and all the surveys and everything. So from infant, she works with us right till the end, and communicating with all the planning officers and everything. If there's any issues with it, and it's Hybrid that deals with it. We've worked on a couple of projects with Oli on especially with Citygate. Also, he's currently looking at another site for co-living for us in London. And then also he's looking at another site for co-living in Edinburgh for us.
Okay, very good. There's a question in there, but I'll hold it so we'll hold it to the later on the presentation because it's relevant to another slide. So that's your team, and I'm assuming then you'll obviously tender for a local builder through construction person.
Yeah. So what we do is we have tender documents that goes out with the complete design, complete planning documents and the building reg documents, and that will be sent out to 3 contractors. And then what we do is we do due diligence and value engineering within the tenders when they come back as well, to make sure that they're in line with our expectation.
Yeah. Okay. Brilliant. Okay. So getting into the sort of the financials now. So from the investor's point of view, they want to see sort of the numbers, how they're going to stack up. So the raise amount 400 to 600,000. The length of project 18 months. The projected ROI 20% per annum, and this is an equity investment. So it's common priority share, and obviously equity is different than, for instance, peer-to-peer. There was a question there that came in for the reason experience to use peer-to-peer. Okay, so the question here is for what's the reason experienced developer like yourselves to use peer-to-peer route to fund when you could have institutional investors to buy this forward funding? Peer-to-peer is expensive. Okay, so this isn't peer-to-peer is the, I suppose, simple answer to that question. This is equity. Whoever's asked that question is right. Peer-to-peer can be quite expensive, but peer-to-peer tends to take the place of senior debt. So this is the equity part. So even if a peer-to-peer loan was achieved and that was a chosen route, there's still most likely going to be an equity part that has to be filled. So I think the next slide will deal with the breakdown of the numbers. But that is the overview of the investment for the investors. So you can see the main numbers. So here's the financials. So I think on the left carries on from that. I mean, it's a really good question to ask in terms of peer-to-peer. So on the left is the funds coming into the project. So Vijay and his team are actually making available 1.2 million of their own funds. Obviously, a large proportion of that went to the purchase of the property, and they have some then to contribute to the overall costs. But that's a significant contribution from the developer, and of course investors like to see developers with skin in the game, so I think that qualifies as skin in the game, Vijay, over 1 million. But there's senior debt in place, so that senior debt is what some developers would take to a peer-to-peer platform to get, but the guys have chosen senior debt rather than peer-to-peer, and then we're doing the equity raise. So any comments just on that, and maybe why you went sort of senior debt route rather than maybe a peer-to-peer route?
I mean, first of all, I mean, the forward funders, they don't look at anything under 100 flats anyway. So at the moment, we've only got planning for 56, so there's no point approaching them until we've got the planning for the 110 plus that we eventually get. That's the main reason we haven't even gone to the forward funders initially. And also with forward funders, it takes 6 months to get the contracts across the line. So you need to start talking to the forward funders way ahead of time, once you know when you're going to get over 100 units. Mm-hmm. So it's not a time to start talking to the forward funders yet. Mm-hmm. I don't know if there's anything else you want to add on to that, Vijay?
Yeah, so basically that's the reason why we decided to get a senior funding in place. So we've got a senior funding of for 24 months in place, and the idea is to kick off the PD. Once the PD is completed, then we will go back to the same senior funders for the phase 2, which they're fully aware of, and they're hoping to support us on that. And subsequently, once this phase 2 is finished, and then we can go for phase 3 with the same funders.
Yeah, if I just add one point, Vijay, I'm sure you'll not mind me saying, part of the discussions that we had eight months ago was about sort of opening you and your brand up to new investors, and a crowdfunding platform like ours, that, you know, now that this raise is on our platform, we've introduced you, to a whole bunch of new investors who can invest potentially in this deal, but also potentially invest in future deals. So, I mean, I think it makes sense for any developer to have numerous sources of funding. Certain deals might suit a certain type of capital stack, but almost certainly, and I'm sure Thomas, from a finance point of view, you'll agree, almost certainly there's very, very few deals in the world of property development that don't involve some equity. Equity needs to be involved somewhere. Is that a fair comment?
Yes, always need equity for the projects. It's fine if you're doing just 1 or 2 projects where you can leave your own cash in. But if you're doing more than 2 or 3 projects like we are doing, we can't always leave our own cash in. So we always have to give some equity profit share away to an outside investor. Otherwise, you can't do more than 2 or 3 projects at a time.
Yeah, absolutely.
They're all very long, sometimes 3-4 years in different cycles. So you can't just have 2 projects going. Otherwise, you're not going to be turning over enough projects.
Mm-hmm.
You need to have 3 or 4 or 5 in the pipeline. They all finish and start at different times.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And that's exactly where equity crowdfunding comes in, because that's what we do. We provide equity, and we allow investors to come in as that equity partners with these sort of deals, which normally are really kept for high net worth individuals, institutions. Property crowdfunding on the equity side allows other people to get in and be involved in these type of deals. I call it the democratizing of property investment. Was one of the reasons why I'm so excited by this model. But on the finances, just quickly then, so these are the headline figures in the offer document. Vijay and Thomas have provided a lot more information in terms of the finances. All these headline numbers are broken down in detail on a very detailed spreadsheet. So that can be accessed through the offer document. But the headline figures you can see there, the acquisition costs, construction costs, finance costs. So the total development cost of 5.767 matches the funding that's in place. And they're looking at a net profit projected at 1.254 million. And you can see then the percentages on the GDV and cost there. So this is the headlines. So it's a matter of, if you want to know more, get a hold of the equity offer document and really deep dive into these. If anyone has any sort of questions on what they can see in front, by all means, fire it up, and we can get Vijay and Thomas to answer any high-level questions on what's there. So really how investors can access the information to make an informed decision. If you go on our platform, you'll see the view deal thumbnail. This is it to the left-hand side. So once you click the view deal, you access our landing pages. Now, before you can actually download the full offer document, which contains all the information and the due diligence and the proof of planning application, the senior debt indicative letter, all that DD is contained in the offer document. And you need to just register on the platform to be able to download that and look at it. Now, once you're on the landing pages, you can access an overview of the project, the financials of the project summary, see the team behind the project. There's also an online forum, so you can leave questions. And so if after tonight you think of a question, you can go on a forum. It's a closed forum to those on this page. and Vijay and Thomas can answer your questions on the forum. Now, this is also beneficial to other investors because a question might be asked that you hadn't even thought of, or if you ask a really good question, then the answer benefits everyone who's on the forum. So you really do get what I call multiple eyeballs looking at a deal and coming at the deal from their own perspective. So it does allow for good crowd due diligence, which I think is beneficial. So you can see there just the key things. Okay, so the time horizon, just a quick question then, is the time horizon 18 months or 24 months for return of capital? So it is estimated at 18 months. You were saying, Vijay, there that the senior debt facility you've went for 24 months just to give yourself a little bit of leeway, but the planning is for 18 months, is that correct?
Yes, we are confident we'll be able to finish the project between 12 and 14 months. We've given 18 months as a space just in case, but we don't see any. It's a straightforward, clean building. It's an open plan offices in there, so it's easy to strip out. And for all we need to do is to make sure we have a strengthening. We're trying to put 2 more floors on the top. We want to make sure that the steel works is put in place for us to carry on the 3rd phase. So the idea is that we've allowed ourselves a couple of months just in case if that works takes a little longer than we anticipate.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, okay. So there's a few questions in here. Now is probably a good time to deal with them before we wrap up. So we're in really good time, and it'd be good to interact with some of the questions. So how are you thinking through contingency planning given the COVID-related restrictions and the challenging economic backdrop? So how are you factoring that into your timings?
So currently, go on, Thomas.
Yeah, we factored in a 5% contingency on our side and at least a 3% contingency on the constructor side. It's 8% contingency in there. And also we've got the extra 3 months to 18 months just in case there's 1 or 2 months delays on that side. And really, I mean, I think Vijay, when you've been, I'll hand over to you. You've been speaking to the builder on the costings.
Yeah. So we've got currently two sites where the contractors are working. We've got a site in Portsmouth that's about to be started in first week in February. So as far as the construction side is concerned, all the contractors are working. We've got a site in Edinburgh. We're starting in a second week in February. Again, although there's a lot of restrictions in Scotland, the contractors are coming on site for the groundworks, for initial groundworks and enabling package we're creating there.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's grand. In terms of COVID, obviously at the minute the building sites are all open. You're
That's
having
correct.
no difficulties in the sites that you're currently operating. I think you're saying you've got one, so everything at the minute.
No,
is
the
fine.
contractors are currently managing the COVID situation in a way they sort of it's not filled up with a lot of staff. It's managed sites basically. So that's how they're managing the sites and working through the programs. And that's hence why we've got 3 or 4 months built in within the 18 months program.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And then from an economic point of view, so getting on site, and at the minute the government are very relaxed on letting construction continue, which is good. But when it comes to then renting the units when they're built, let's just say we fast forward 12, 14 months and we're still in this current situation. Do you think that's going to affect like rental figures in any way, potential sale value? What's your assessment of that?
That's a good point. I mean, we currently have 2 student accommodation in Leicester, and in current market, we're currently occupying at about 92%, 93%. So, and the way we normally manage is as soon as we start the construction on site, we start marketing them for the due date, 6, 7, 8 months in advance. So we get ourselves the marketing information and everything ready with the agents and everything ready to kick off. So in Leicester, we haven't had any issues in last COVID market, and this is student accommodation, and we managed to have a good occupation there.
Good. Okay. In terms of a question in here just about how much money's been spent to date, and I know the equity offer document does break that down in good detail, but for the sake of tonight, things like how much was the phase 1 site purchase for, and how much has been spent so far on planning fees, architects, etc., to get where you are.
The purchase price is 2.6 million. We've spent 15% on the exchange. And the reason for that was that we wanted to get the PD and working with the Leicester City Council to get the pre-approved. So hence we put in 15% of the exchange money, and we spent roughly about 55 to 60,000 pounds on the planning fees and all the surveys and everything carried out so far.
Okay, excellent. Thank you for that. Just to clarify, someone's asked, is it 400 or 600? So it's a 600k raise. That's the maximum raise, but the minimum's been set at 400k. So that's the figure that the guys are happy if they get that, then they carry on. But it's fair to say, Vijay, obviously, if you we raise 400, then you guys have the ability to put the other 200 in to cover the costs. It's not that there'll be any risk to the project if we only raise 400. It was just 400 what you would like, and if we get some extra, then it just means you guys put in less. Effectively, I think that's a fair way of summarizing it.
That's correct. We've allowed for if it's raised 400, and then we've got the difference of the money to be put in to complete the deal. And if it's 600, then we have the enough equity we wanted.
Yeah, brilliant. Okay, good question here from someone. Will the successful main contractor be required to provide a bond?
The contractor we're going to be using on this project, we've been working with that contractor in Leicester on 3 other projects. So we know the contractor quite well. We know his balance sheet quite well. And the funders, the senior funders we've got, they haven't requested a bond from them. So at the moment, we're quite comfortable. If the bond is required, then the contractor is quite happy to enter into a bond with us. Yes.
Okay, thank you for that. Okay, so I think that's most of the questions that were there. So we're going to be wrapping up here in 2 or 3 minutes. So any last minute questions, fire them in. So there's one more just popped in. I'll deal with this before I finish up. Would you class this equity raise as mezzanine? I'm trying to understand the security. Will this money be secured by a first charge? Okay, really good question. So this is not classed as mezzanine, particularly for the reason that you've identified regarding security. And again, Thomas can come in behind me here if he wants to make any comments, but the first charge will of course go to the senior lender. If there was mezzanine involved, then that would take the second charge. So the equity investors on this raise, there's not official security. You don't get security of the investment. You're effectively buying shares in the SPV that owns the asset. So the security is effectively your shareholder. You own a percentage of the SPV that holds the valuable asset. So you're effectively buying shares, and then when the project's complete, Vijay and the company buy the shares back off you with the projected ROI on top of it. So there's no security. This is equity. This is not a loan. It's not peer-to-peer. This is straight equity. So I don't know, Thomas, do you want to add anything to that or make any points on that?
Yeah, I think on that, because the thing is the developer has to pay back the shareholders first before they take their own money out. So the developers leave their money in last, in effect. So, the investors on your group, they get paid first after the senior lender.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, thanks for.
So effectively, you are second in line to get paid out before the developer takes any money out.
Yeah, no, that's a very good point. Very good point, Thomas.
And the developers got 1.2 million in so far. They will probably end up putting a little bit more in still. So the developer will have to lose 1.5 million before your funds get affected.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, that's brilliant. Okay, so I think we need to move on and wrap up on this. So if any more questions do arise, please you can go on our forum and you can leave any questions there. So as I was saying earlier, when you click on the landing pages, you can access all this information. You can download the document. You can see there at the bottom. And then what's important is there's this box in the middle, which we call recorded interest. So if you're on the webinar tonight and you feel this is a project that you might be interested in investing in, then you can leave an email address, an amount that you might be comfortable investing, and that just registers your interest in this project and allows Vijay and Thomas and ourselves to assess that, see where we are with recorded interest, and then make a decision on when we go live for investment, which more than likely will be next week. I know a number of people on the webinar tonight have already recorded their interest, and this is their last stage of due diligence before formalizing that. So just that is helpful and useful. If you do intend to invest, then leave your email address, record your interest, and that way we can sort of communicate with you on the basis of knowing that you are interested in this project. Okay, there's a question come in there just again regarding some of the finance. Where's the 1.2 million being spent? That's all in the offer document. So for time tonight, we're not going to deep dive into that. So the document explains exactly what has been put in so far, which is about accurate as to what you've said, about 394,000. There's a bit more bills going out at the minute, but the total spend will be 1.2. So that's all broken down in the offer document. And again, we can answer that in more detail on the forums if required. 460k gives what equity in the SPV? Again, we're sort of out of time now. We can answer that directly, or we can get it into the forum, and we can go through that. So there is a share table in the offer document, which explains the percentage of the company that is going to the equity investors. So we'll answer that there, which is fine. So in terms of where we got to there, record interest, which is great. So raised by way of wrapping up tonight, there is the project. It is currently view deal, will more likely be open for investment next week. And summarizing, it's a build to rent scheme. It's a commercial to resi conversion. Vijay and the team have purchased the building, and you can obviously look on Google Maps. You can see the area. The equity raise is 600,000. The projected return is 20% per annum. We're expecting it to be an 18-month project. Minimum investment is £1,000 on this project. Okay, so that is the key headline figures. Someone's just come in there and said, thanks guys, great presentation. So yeah, thank you for that, appreciate that. So that is really brings us to the end of tonight, right smack on time, which is great. For anyone who wants to reach out to myself or John Corey, who I work quite closely with from Property Fortress, if you might have a project and you want some input in terms of structuring the deal, raising the equity, by all means reach out to myself or John, and we're more than happy to have a conversation with you. And that just leads me to finish tonight. So Vijay and Thomas, any last minute summaries on the project and on this raise?
And thank you for everyone joining us, and hopefully we can work together going forward.
Yes, let's just send us any questions that you might have, anything you want. We're happy to answer them, and yeah, look forward to hearing from you.
Yeah, fantastic. So listen, can I thank on behalf of LEOcrowdfunding, can I thank Vijay and Thomas for taking the time to come tonight. I know you're both two very, very busy guys, but I really appreciate you taking the time. It does let our investor base actually sort of see you, get a feel for you in terms of your who you are, and as I say, see the whites of the eyes, which is really good to get a chance to do a Q&A and understand the project better. So really appreciate that. I think it's been a really good presentation. So if you're interested in this, register on the platform, download the equity offer document, record your interest on the landing page, and then we can move forward from there. So thanks very much everyone for tuning in. Have a great rest of the week, and above all in the current climate, make sure you stay safe. All the best, guys. Bye-bye now.
Okay, bye-bye.